Hello, happy Friday, and welcome to Precision TV. I am your host, Hanovi, and looking forward to a fruitful chat this evening. I hope you had a great week. I sure did. It was a little tiring, but hey, we all made it through, so that's a good thing. And today we are going to take a review of today's headlines. And as you can see, from MSNBC, CNN, and Fox, the biggest is Israel escalates war in Gaza. And everyone says Israel is pounding Gaza. Well, if your attempt is to redeem yourself after having made one of the worst intelligence failure and having your citizens threatened and terrorized in southern Israel, and seeing the subsequent horrible actions in southern Israel, then it's not really a good attempt at redeeming yourself. Because, strangely enough, I can only imagine pounding Gaza, especially where hostages are being held, does not make it look like you're concerned about civilians and the hostages in particular, unless the attempt is to keep up the pressure and to overcompensate for failures made. I can only imagine how terrorized hostages who are already being held in some very unfavorable conditions and having to deal with the terror of a bombing campaign above their heads. It's not something that you or I would look forward to having. So it makes me wonder, is there any concern for the hostages that are being held? But then again, it's always been said and reiterated that, oh, you don't negotiate with terrorists. So, that being the case, maybe this is a strategy that is being pursued here. Now, some may say air power is overrated. Now, if you're dealing with another conventional enemy that has mechanized infantry and is probably on the attack, and you want to halt that attack, then sure, by all means, you will pummel and you will bomb them into the earth. However, if you're dealing with an enemy that is pretty much entrenched, you don't want to rely solely on air power. And if you carpet bomb the place and you create more places for the enemy to conceal, that in itself is counterproductive. If you don't believe me, let history be your guide. And you don't have to be a military genius. If we look historically at some of the most tremendous bombing campaigns and the subsequent effect it had and the impact it had on an invasion, well, one wonders. Now, let's take a look at what happened in Stalingrad. Again, I always have to go back to Stalingrad. And the German army bombed the crap out of Stalingrad, thinking that that would have been a good method of approach. However, having bombed the crap out of Stalingrad, when the Germans went in, they were horribly defeated and got into what they referred to as a rat's nest because it was difficult for tanks to maneuver. It was also very difficult for the infantry to try to get to the enemy because, of course, what was said earlier, the more you bomb, the more places you create in terms of ruble where the enemies can hide when you're trying to initiate a ground attack. Again, I am sure these military geniuses know exactly what they're doing. Well, let's not just look at Stalingrad. Let's come forward a little. We did the same thing in Vietnam. A matter of fact, in some respects, the amount of munitions dropped in Vietnam exceeded the amount that was dropped in World War II. And again, to what avail? Still, Vietnam turned into a nightmare because, again, you were not facing a conventional army. You were facing enemies that resorted to guerrilla tactics, against whom air power does not serve too well. Because many a time, again, that enemy is entrenched in tunnels and in bunkers. And of course, they had the benefit of cover from the jungles. Well, in an urban setting, by bombing the place, what you're creating is a concrete jungle of sorts, which, again, as I have said earlier, does provide several places where one can conceal. And I believe that in these cases, the defenders heeded very well to Sun Tzu's strategy of burying yourself in the deepest corner of the earth when you are weaker. Let's come forward again and let's see what happened in Afghanistan, where again the enemy resorted to guerrilla tactics and embedded themselves in caves and bunkers and tunnels, just like is currently done in Gaza. Now, these guerrilla tactics were so effective that the mighty Soviet USSR at the time could not have defeated Afghanistan. And after 10 years of campaigning, guess what? They had to pack up and leave. Well, we also know the story of another 20 years spent by another superpower, of course, the United States, which at the end had to pack up and leave. So, history would have taught us, it seems, that guerrilla tactics and people who embed themselves deep into the recesses of the earth, as suggested by Sun Tzu, seems to have an edge. We can also take a look at what was done in Iwo Jima. Up until that time, the bombing campaign in Iwo Jima was extremely extensive, months on edge. And at the same time, when finally the infantry had to take the island over, it was a horrible experience. So, probably it might be a little sensational for media personnel who know nothing about the horrors of war to applaud the bombing campaign, thinking that that would be the end in itself. Then again, we see a mainstream media that gets all sensational that many of the people who were indicted in the Georgia trial are making deals and some are pleading guilty. And ooh, wow, that's a sign that Trump is going to be in real trouble. Oh, look, they're all turning on him. Well, here are some heads up. And I'm sure you yourself may know that, or maybe was not paying attention and had not realized that many cases are resolved by plea deals. This is not something untypical. And I'll tell you what, I'm not a legal guy myself, but I remember learned a little in something called criminology. And I never forget it. I was really happy that I had someone who taught me very well. And this is what she said. Praises to Miss Makahari. She says that 90% of cases are resolved by plea deals. And she says it's also a very practical reason behind it. Because if you were to take every single case that goes into the system all the way to a trial and all the shenanigans that goes with the trial, guess what? The court system will come to a freaking halt. It will be clogged by so many cases. But hey, what do I know? I'm sure the mass media and the mainstream media knows a hell of a lot more than us lay people, right? That's why they could tell you, oh, look at all these plea deals. Oh, look at all these guys are pleading guilty and making deals. Oh, guess what? Guess what? They're gonna flip. And just like penguins, we clap. We say, yeah, they're gonna get Trump. Yeah, sure. They're all gonna flip and they're gonna turn against him. And yeah, we're gonna get him. Yeah, right. All the court shenanigans and indictments, I'll tell you, seems more of a hiccup and to frustrate him than anything else. As to anything being substantial and sticking, it's barely a chance. But it makes for good television and it keeps the attention of Trump hating bastards. But hey, this is probably just me. I might just be conspiratorial. Well, all that's left to touch on is what's going on in Maine. Seriously, they haven't captured or found out what happened to the gentleman who committed a horrific massacre. Hopefully, this comes to a conclusion very soon. And today, I'm going to leave it at that. You have a great night and hopefully a great weekend. Please share, subscribe, like, and comment. I'll be more than happy to respond to your comments. And if there's a topic or something that you'd like to discuss, then please let me know.